Hello, young scientists, and welcome to Brain Awareness. My name's Dr. Robert Sarles. I work at Pacific Northwest University of Health Sciences, the College of Osteopathic Medicine. And there, one of the things that I do is I teach the medical students about the brain. You might be wondering, why do I care about brain awareness? Well, let me tell you 3 reasons maybe that you should care about, okay? One is that knowing something about your brain is going to help you use your brain better, to help you focus on things, to help you be in the moment, to be mindful, to be aware of what you're doing, okay? And that's a really good thing to be able to do. The second thing is because your brain is very unique. The things that you think about and that you believe and that you like and you don't like, those are very unique to you. So your brain is very special. And because it's very special, we want to make sure that we protect it. And the third reason we want to do this is that the brain is very cool. Now, we're going to take a growth mindset. And what I mean by that is we want to be able to adapt. We want to be able to learn. We want to be able to not necessarily just memorize things and memorize what things do, but be adaptable and be ready to learn. So if you take a growth mindset, then it's much easier to have a good awareness and a good appreciation of the brain and your environment. So let's all just sit back and relax for a minute, okay, and take a growth mindset about becoming aware of the brain. Now, if we look at the brain, here we have a model of the brain over here on the left. And that's the model I just showed you, okay? And here we have a photograph of a brain. Now, what you notice is that the model is a very good model of the brain. And so these are the type of things we can study when we don't have brains around, okay? But one thing you notice is this big crack right here in the middle, both in the model and in the photograph of the brain. Now, we're looking on the top of the brain. We're looking from the top facing down. And what that makes you notice is that we have a distinct left side of the brain and a right side of the brain, okay? And those different sides of the brain do different things. So for example, the left side of the brain controls the right side of the body, and the right side of the brain controls the left side of the body. And that's a very interesting thing, okay? Because the right side of the brain doesn't know what the left side of the body is doing, and the left side of the body doesn't know what the right side of the brain are doing until they cross over with these fibers I'll show you in a little while, okay? So we have a left and right hemisphere. Also, for most people, the left hemisphere is where you process language, where your brain processes language. So strokes in the left hemisphere, most people lose the ability to use language, okay? And the right hemisphere is for spatial processing. What that means is in 3-dimensional space around you, where are things? Where are your body? Where are those things moving to? What direction are they going in? How fast are they going? These are spatial types of abilities, like throwing a ball, okay? So you need spatial abilities and you need language abilities to succeed, and the left and right hemisphere are going to help you do this. Now I want to look at the side of the brain. So we take the brain and we're looking at the side, okay? And one of the things that we're going to see here is that we can see the different lobes of the brain, okay? Now there's a big crack running down the lateral side, the side of the brain, okay? And that big, in fact, there's a couple of big cracks, okay? But that big crack divides the front part of the brain, which does motor stuff, meaning it controls your muscles, including the muscles that make you talk, okay? And then the back side of the brain, from this side of the crack back, is for sensory information. It's for processing signals from the environment and for processing signals from your own body, okay? So we can take the brain and divide it up into different lobes, brain lobes, that do different things. So let's talk about that for a second, okay? Both on the model and in the photograph. So up here's the front of the brain, back here's the back of the brain, okay? This is the cerebellum down here. This is what coordinates your activity. So if you're very coordinated, you have a well-working cerebellum. If you're not well coordinated, just keep working at it because your cerebellum will learn. Your cerebellum has a growth mindset. Okay, so what we see is a frontal lobe, okay? And this frontal lobe moves your body. It's for the muscles of your body, including the muscles that make you talk, okay? The temporal lobe right here, so if you put your finger on your temple, that's where the temporal lobe is. The temporal lobe is for hearing, and it's also for understanding what people are saying to you. It's for understanding language. In the very back is called the occipital lobe, okay? It's in the very back of the brain. It's for vision. Now, of course, your eyes are up here in the front. Your eyes are down here. So that information has to get from the front of your brain all the way back to the occipital lobe for you to be able to see it, okay? And then finally, we have the parietal lobe, which is again for more spatial types of things, okay? Where objects are and where they're going. So that's the different lobes of the brain. Now let's just take a review of that because that's a lot to learn in just a couple of minutes. So let's take a little review of what we just talked about, okay? So here's the frontal lobes. Think about what they do, okay? They move the body and they talk and they think because some of your thinking is in language. I think I like that. I think I don't like that, okay? The parietal lobe is for feeling things. What am I touching? What's touching me? Is it cold? Is it hot? Am I feeling some pain? Okay, so this is for the sense of touch, okay? But it's also for spatial things. And sometimes you think spatially. You might think in images or things that are moving around in your mind, okay? And again, the occipital lobe is for seeing. People that have damage to the occipital lobe are blind. Okay, and then the temporal lobe is for hearing all kinds of sounds, but especially processes language sounds, which are unique types of sounds. Okay, let's see what else we've got. Well, let's cut the brain in half. So I'm going to take the brain, here's the model, and I'm going to cut it in half. Boom, like that. And now we're going to look at it. So we can look at it that way, or we can look at it that way, okay? So this is the inside of the brain. And here's that big band of fibers that I told you about. This is just some white matter here. That doesn't matter. I'll talk about a little bit of that at the end, okay? But this little structure here connects the left and right hemisphere. So very quickly after one side of your brain processes something, zoom, it goes over to the other side to be processed, okay? Slight delay, okay? But what we see on the inside of the brain here is this thing called the cingulate gyrus. Okay, a gyrus is just a big bump, okay? So to old anatomists, this looks like a big bump here, okay? And this is part of a lobe called the limbic lobe. This is where emotion is processed in your brain. So depression and other disorders, other diseases of emotion usually involve this part of the brain, the cingulate gyrus or the limbic lobe. This limbic lobe is also connected down to something I'll show you later called the hippocampus, which you can't see here because it's behind all of this. And the hippocampus and the cingulate gyrus are for memory. So your brain processes memory emotionally because memories are happy memories or they're sad memories. Okay, so there's most of the brain. Now let's look at the underside of it. So now we've just turned the brain upside down. The spinal cord's chopped off, okay? And the spinal cord would normally be going down here. And what we can see, let me zoom in a little bit. Okay, this is the underside of the brain. So here's the underside of those temporal lobes, the underside of those frontal lobes. What we see here, this is our smelling nerve, okay? It's not a smelly nerve, but this is how you smell different things in the environment, okay? So things that are stinky or things that smell good. This little nerve lies right on the bottom of your brain, okay? Here's your optic nerve. This is for vision. So this nerve helps you see. okay? And you can see it crosses over because the left side of the brain wants to know what's on the right side of your body, and the right side of your brain wants to know what's on the left side of your body. So our vision crosses over in the brain to go to the occipital lobe. And then this little stem hanging off, okay, is called the brain stem, okay, because that's what it looks like. It looks like a little stem that the brain, this big fruit, is connected to, okay? So it's called the brain stem. And the brain stem is involved in your survival, okay? So damage to the brain stem is usually very bad, all right? So these are things like it makes your heart beat, it makes your lungs work, keeps your blood pressure going. It also controls your attention, okay? So in a lot of ways, what this brainstem is going to do is like a volume knob where it turns your attention up or turns your attention down. Let's look at that on another slide, okay? So again, we've got the little brain. Now I've turned it over the other way so you can see both sides look pretty much the same, all right? So here's the different hemispheres. Here's the cerebellum for coordination back here. Here's that band of fibers that connects the two hemispheres. And then down here's the brain stem. Okay? Now this is an MRI of about a 2 or 3 year old child. Okay? And so with an MRI, we can look inside the skull and we can see the brain. But you can see this little bump right here is the same as this little bump over here. Okay? So this is the brain stem coming down. And then here comes the spinal cord going down. Okay. Notice how the brain's up here and the brain stem is a little bit at an angle, and then the spinal cord is pretty much heading straight down your back. Okay. So this brain stem contains little structures of neurons, that are going to keep you awake. It also has neurons that put you to sleep. Okay. So this controls our awareness. How aware are you right now? Okay. And it also controls our arousal, okay? Are you kind of tired, okay? Or are you feeling kind of jumpy? So it controls our arousal. And all of you know, like by the end of the day, we start getting tired, it starts getting hard to pay attention. But if you have a growth mindset, okay? If you're thinking about, what am I doing now? I'm learning about the brain, or whatever it is that you're doing. I'm playing outside. If you can think about that, okay, be in the moment, be grateful for that moment, then your frontal lobes, which do the thinking, can actually tell your brainstem, hey, turn the volume up a little bit. Or it can say, hey, turn the volume down a little bit. So being in the moment with a growth mindset is going to help you focus your attention, which is one of those things that's pretty important in school. But it's important in sports, it's important in play, it's important in a lot of other things too, focusing your attention. Okay, here's a little close-up of the brain, moving in a little bit closer to get a bigger look at this brain stem, okay? Controlling our survival instincts and controlling things like our arousal level, which of course helps you with your survival. All right, here's a sheep's brain, okay? Notice the similarities in the human brain. This is a lot smaller because sheep are smaller, but you see a left hemisphere and a right hemisphere, okay? You see that big crack in the middle, and their cerebellum sticks straight back. That's kind of weird, but I'm going to show you that in a minute, and you can probably figure out why, because I know you're all young scientists and you're all very smart, okay? But what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to dissect this sheep's brain for you right now, okay? All right, so these are dissection instruments that we use in the dissection lab at the medical school. This is a brain knife, okay, and this is a brain scalpel. So these are the things that we use with the medical student to teach them about the brain, okay. I'm going to be using a much smaller scalpel today. Okay, so here we are. Here's the sheep's brain and the normal size scalpel. Here's what it's going to look like when I get done, okay? And then here's the human brain, the model. Of course, this one's facing this way, and this one's facing that way. So keep your eye on the prize here, okay? We're thinking, the sheep's brain, the inside looks pretty much like the human brain, okay? So let's begin this dissection. So the first thing we want to do is split the brain in half, the left and right hemispheres. Okay? So then I got to cut through the cerebellum. And then, oh, it gets stuck on my scalpel. I don't know what to do. Okay? So I had to turn the camera off, and now I turned it back on, and here's what the inside looks like. Okay? Now also notice this, that for the sheep's brain, here's the front up here, here's the cerebellum. See, here's the front of our brain, here's our cerebellum. See, remember like in that MRI, our brain stem's going down, and then our spinal cord's going almost straight down, okay? With the sheep, it's coming straight back, okay? And that pops the cerebellum up there a little higher, okay? But then their spinal cord goes straight back too. So I bet you can figure out why their brain stem goes back and ours goes down. So there's what the human brain looks like if we turn it down. Okay? And of course that's because we stand upright on 2 feet and sheep are animals that walk on 4 legs. Okay? So their spinal cord goes straight back from their head. Ours goes down. Okay. But notice that nature has made all of these animal brains very similar to each other because they all do a lot of the same thing. Okay, now our brain is inside our skull, okay? And to get in the skull, we need a bone saw. Okay, now I'm not going to saw anything off today, but I just wanted to show you how we do that, okay? But the point is that your brain is in here inside this little bony cave, okay? Now what I want to do is show you the skull. So this is a model of a human skull, and I've already taken the top off. So I've taken the top off of the skull. It comes right off on this model. Now we're going to look down in there, okay? And we're going to see where the brain goes. There we go. Okay, the brain is going right in there, and then the spinal cord sticks straight down through that hole. Okay? All right. Now, your brain is inside that bony vault, in that bony bowl, okay? And it's held in there by a thing called the meninges. Maybe you've heard of meningitis, okay? But the meninges, and the meninges have these little spider web looking things, okay? And they're like Spider-Man spider webs. They're super strong, okay? And what they do is they hold the brain in the skull and attach it to the inside of the skull. So what you see here is someone's had something hit them in the head. This person has a concussion, okay? And what you see is this is blood collecting there around the meninges, okay? So that's why it's so important to be careful with our head, because that very important brain is on the inside, and without that brain, you would not be who you are. Okay, I just wanted to show you this picture because it's really cool, okay? So this is an actual picture of neurons in a mouse's brain. So this is the hippocampus. It doesn't really matter what it is, but I wanted to show you a close-up electron microscope view of neurons. They look really, really cool. Okay, now I hope you've learned something about the brain. I hope you've taken a growth mindset today, and I hope you had a good time talking about it, okay? I'm Dr. Robert Sarles, and I'm signing off now. Okay, study hard, little scientists. You're going to be great. Thank you.